Hello, everyone. Welcome to our latest podcast. I'm really pleased to be joined today with Luke Stewart, who is the Operations Director at Seequent. Luke, would you like to share a few details about yourself?
Yep. So as Steve said, hi everybody, Luke Stewart, Regional Operations Director for the EMEA region in Seequent. I guess just quickly about Seequent. We are a software as a service technology company, and we're all about understanding the underground. So everything underneath your feet, that's what we're all about. Geology, geophysics, sort of geo stuff under the earth. So my role in the business is in the sales and operations side of the business, best practice, really, making sure that as a company, we are undertaking and doing things in the best possible way for our customers, and our salespeople have the best tools and are following best practice across sort of everything that they do. So that's just a quick introduction to me, Steve.
Thanks, Luke. It's good to see you. Thank you for making time for this podcast. As per our other podcasts, I've got a whole bunch of questions I'm going to ask you. And without further ado, let's start with the first one. So, in your experience of both working in and leading teams, how important is it to create a strong culture, and what impact do you think culture has on sales performance?
Okay. So yeah, look, Steve, I'm a real believer in strong culture in the workplace, and think it's critical, really, to ensure the best possible performance and outcomes of sales teams and technical teams, just all the teams, really. I mean, my focus is primarily on sales and operations, but it permits across the whole business. In terms of impact, it can impact team morale, how long people stay in the role, so staff turnover. But ultimately, results and performance is the biggest impact that I've seen culture have. Having those strong results and there's that strong performance. And really, if you have a strong culture and everyone is working together, trying to achieve the same goal or outcome, in my experience, is when sales teams can work at their best and achieve the best possible results. So yes, strong believer in a healthy workplace culture, and I think it has huge benefits on, ultimately on the performance of your teams.
Very good, thank you. Maybe as an additional question to that, how would you describe the culture at Seequent then?
Yes, so I think very open, very collaborative and open culture with a sort of very flat structure in the business, and so everyone's got a voice and is listened to, and that's I think that's two of the most important things around a strong culture as well, that everyone has a voice, feels listened to, feels like they've got, they're part of the greater good in a way. So that's what we've tried to achieve at Seequent, and it's never perfect, but that's the ultimate goal, really.
Thank you. So during your career, you've led a number of teams. Adding to what you've already said, what other elements would you say support a strong culture, and how, as a leader, have you gone about creating or helping create that culture?
Yeah, so as I sort of already started to touch on, strong culture is all about sort of how people feel, how they act, and how ultimately you make decisions in the business. So it's not just about having sort of team events and going to the pub as a team. That's an important part of it, but it's only one small aspect of the strong culture. I think the strong culture really looks like a team who understands the overall goal and objective of the company, and everyone is sort of looking and acting to achieve that something bigger than just your sort of personal performance. So it's not just all about you and your personal performance. It's about the greater good. So it's all about how we act collectively, really, and it's not something that can be created overnight. There is no magic bullet for how it happens. It sort of happens over a long period of time, and you've got to put work and effort into and be conscious about that culture. And I think actually it makes it a lot easier if it comes from the top, so C-level down to the management and the team leaders. Sort of if at the top they're setting the tone for the business and acting in that sort of collaborative manner, it's much easier for that to sort of trickle down and for everyone to take on that same persona, I guess you could say. So, it's not 100, you can still do it without having that, but it makes it a lot easier if you've got it coming from the top down, and people can feel comfortable replicating what's being done at the top. And as I said, there's no magic bullet for the strong culture. It takes continuous time and effort, but I think the place to start is to create that healthy, open environment where everyone is listened to, everyone's opinions and views are taken into account. And I guess it doesn't mean that those views are always implemented or form part of what we end up doing. The important thing is that everyone has that voice and that is taken seriously. And that comes from having that safe, open environment. And as I've already said, Steve, we have a quite flat structure in Seequent. I think anyone could really pick up the phone to the CEO and ask a question or get some advice from him, and that trickles down throughout the rest of the business as well. So providing that environment of recognition is also important. So recognizing people when they have done good work and learning from it as a team. I think it's important on the flip side to that if things are not going well, we also need to recognize that as well, right? And at least initially approach it from a perspective of learning, understanding, and improving over time. And when you've got an open and honest environment, it's much easier to do that. So I think learning as well. So everyone is learning, and there is an environment of coaching and continuous feedback. Again, ensuring this is part of your sort of everyday, and people are coachable, and managers are actively looking for coaching opportunities, and having those coaching conversations is a critical skill and worth embedding in an organization. And probably just one more thing in terms of how to sort of create that. A lot of it comes from the hiring. So hiring the right people. So bringing people on board that are a good fit for the team and for your culture. And for us, this has been really important. So I will often hire people who have it's more important than the experience to have that fit for the business, fit for the culture. A lot of the sort of technical skills and sales skills, I think they can be taught. You can't really teach how a person actually is, and how they act. So I think that hiring is really important as well. So I guess just summarizing, a strong culture doesn't happen overnight, but it can sometimes take years of work to embed that kind of environment, but it helps if it's driven from the top. It's all about having a shared sense of vision and purpose, and a collaborative, open environment where recognition, feedback, and learning is actively practiced and encouraged.
Fabulous. So there's at least 5 components there that I heard around it. Seequent's experienced significant change over the last couple of years, not least being bought by a larger organization. How has that impacted your approach and or the culture?
Yeah, so indeed. So Seequent, I think 2.5 years ago almost, was purchased by a larger American company, Bentley Systems. And even before that acquisition, we were growing substantially as a company, from when I first joined, when everyone knew each other pretty much, to a point where even within Seequent, let alone Bentley, you didn't know everyone in your region or local office. So the growth has been quite large sort of organically in the business as well. So when those two things collide, as you say, it can be quite hard to keep that culture I talked about intact. I think one crucial thing that Bentley did when they acquired us was keep Seequent as a separate business unit with relative autonomy, so which has allowed us much more to be more autonomous and keep those culture and that value that we've worked so hard on before intact. So there've been changes, of course, back office systems, processes, all those kind of things, which have caused difficulties and annoyances at some way along the path, but ultimately that culture and that feeling has been kept intact by staying pretty separate. So that's really helped. The organic growth in the company as well. That's, as we're becoming larger, it's harder to, there's a risk of becoming less personable, losing touch with what's happening a little bit. But more or less, we've managed to keep the way of working and our approach relatively intact. And I think we've done that by being conscious about it, right? By actively understanding what our culture is and actively trying to keep that intact and revisiting the subject when it's not working, bringing it up and talking about it, as well. As I said, that open and honest environment that we've had, I guess, because our culture was like that, it's easier to do that. So if it isn't going right, we've been able to talk about it, and do something to try and fix it. So it has changed definitely since we've been acquired, but as much as I think almost possible, we've kept that environment and that culture that we had and I talked about before, relatively intact, which has been great.
Very good, thank you. If I think about the products you sell, they're technically complex. Traditionally, they've been sold by technical experts, i.e. geologists selling to geologists.
Yeah.
Are you seeing any change in that? And if so, what's the impact?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as a sales force, as you said, we originally, it was technical experts selling, demoing, doing everything to other technical experts, or geologists or geophysicists talking to other geologists, or geophysicists. And I guess on top of that, our business came from a very product focused approach. So our original product, Leapfrog Geo, is sort of a very innovative first of breed product. So it was quite easy to sell, right? Because it was ahead of the curve. But we don't just sell one product anymore. We have a suite of products that work together to form more business critical workflows and solutions. So just that has made our sale become more complex. And with this, we've had to change what our sales force looks like and talks about. And we've had to separate. One thing we've done is separate the sort of technical side of the business to the more commercial sales side of the business. So two more distinct groups. And they still collaborate and work together all the time. That's crucial that they do that. But there is much more clearer lines of separation. And there's more alignment on who does what and what people are responsible for the roles that they do undertake. So it's not just one person doing everything, being the technical expert, performing the demo, answering technical questions, and then doing the sales negotiation, which is where we came from, which you might think is a bit crazy, really, but it did work in the early days. And it's been a steady change. It's taken over a year or so to embed and ensure that right alignment amongst the teams has been achieved. But with that change, we had to create new roles with clear lines of engagement, responsibilities, hire people who are much more commercial focused, people with the sales and account management background. In fact, I've been with the business for 5 or 6 years, and I was one of the first sort of more commercial sales orientated type people who were in this region anyway, who came on board. So I mean that the main impact has been that adjustment to those roles and that separation and finding the balance to ensure they work together smoothly and collaboratively. And coming back to the culture discussion, having that collaborative, helpful culture has really helped in achieving this. So our people have the right attitudes and are willing to embrace change and new ways of working for that sort of greater good once it's been explained to them, and that they've been listened to as well, through that change path, I guess you could say. So the main impact has been on the people as well, right? So that's where I think when you do change, the first place to start is always with people. How's it going to affect them? How's it going to affect the way that they're working? There's other things like creating sales enablement material, new processes, and things like that. But I think that almost just comes. That's the functional things that we work through. It's that people aspect of making sure people are aligned, people know what they're meant to be doing and how they're doing it and why they're meant to be doing it and why we've made the change, which has been important in that. really goes back to what we've been talking about, that sort of cultural aspect of how we want to work, in a way. So yeah, I'd say that's where we are at the moment.
Thank you. You mentioned coaching previously as, part of that strong culture, and I know it's an important element of your leadership approach. Can you tell us why coaching is so important for you?
Yeah, I mean, I yeah, big believer in culture. Sorry, not culture, in coaching, and I think it can help the sales culture, as I said earlier, and I've always tried to make coaching a part of our overall culture and how our sales teams and team leaders work. So I'm always looking to improve myself and the people I work with, as well. And I'm sort of a big believer in constant improvement, and coaching is one of the most powerful tools we have as sales leaders to achieve that constant improvement, and learning. So I believe people have sort of the ability to achieve their goals and that they set themselves, and through coaching we can help in that, in them achieving those goals. And it's really good to, when you do have coaching conversations over a period of time, to see the change in front of your eyes as people start to achieve their own goals. So what coaching is all about for me is letting people understand what their goals are, and sort of helping and guiding and empowering them to achieve those. It's not about sort of telling people or sort of management. It's about people, helping people achieve those goals on their own with the right intentions. So when you have those conversations and you approach coaching from that perspective, I think it can be a really powerful tool, and I'm always talking about it in amongst our sales leaders, and encouraging them to be coaches, as such.
And what are some of the challenges you experience or that you see others experience in terms of coaching?
Yeah, I mean, there's always challenges. But probably one of the ones that people always talk about is time. People are busy, right? And it's sometimes hard to find the time for these kinds of activities. But if you're deliberate about it, make it one of your priorities as leaders, that can be overcome. So it's, that's about talking about it, making sure it is a priority and people are having those conversations. I think getting buy-in from the team as well. So making sure people want to be coached. If people aren't brought into that coaching conversation and are not receptive to it, it can be really, sometimes not a lot of point in doing it. So we, you need to ask people, are they willing and open to have coaching conversations? And that starts again in the hiring process. An interview question I quite often ask is, how coachable do you think you are? So, yep, that can be a challenge as well. And I guess back to what you do, Steve, ensuring that the leadership team have the right skills to be coaches and understand what coaching actually, is. It's not about telling people how to do things. It's about empowering people to do things themselves. So making sure that that team have the right skills to be able to have those coaching conversations, which quite often don't come naturally. So yeah, the right skills as well, and that's probably the last challenge I can think of.
I'm just curious, does anyone ever respond to that interview question saying, no, I'm entirely uncoachable?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
I think that could be the end of the interview process.
Yeah.
But I think especially in just making sure that in that interview process people know that that we have a culture of coaching, and that's something that we're serious about and we want to happen within the business. So even if they they're always going to answer yes, at least that they know that coaching is something that's important to us, and that's the business that they're coming into.
Yes, indeed. Luke, thank you. That's the last of my big questions for you, but I do have some quick fire questions that we ask all of our podcast guests. So let's rattle through these.
Yep.
So the first question is, what advice would you give somebody just starting out in a sales leadership role?
Oh, well, I mean, how could I not say create a strong culture?
Yeah.
So, and that comes back to the things we're talking about. Take the time, hire the right people, create that culture that you want to create around yourselves, and you know, make that part of the vision for your, you know, leadership and sales future.
Thank you. And what's your favorite sales book, blog, or podcast? You know, excluding this one, of course.
I've read quite a lot of sales books, and I find it really hard to pick out one, because they all give you little, you know, maybe not all what you need, but little snippets that you take here and there. So maybe not so much sales one, but I'm sort of a big fan of Simon Sinek, and, you know, Leaders Eat Last, and sort of that's more on the leadership side of things. But I think that, you know, that can really help as well in terms of your sales leadership.
Perfect. Thank you. What do you believe are the 3 most important attributes to be a successful salesperson?
3. I like 3 as well. It's just sometimes hard to boil it down to just 3, isn't it? But I think curiosity is really important. As a salesperson, you've got to be persistent as well. And I think you've got to have a win-win attitude. You know, I think the old, you know, salespeople who are just out there to sell things to make their sort of commission and make their targets is hopefully long gone. It's got to be win-win, you know. And I think people who have that attitude and go in to any sales conversation with a win-win attitude, you know, that's what I'm looking for in a salesperson.
Excellent. Thank you. And what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given in sales?
Yeah, that's tough. You know what? One of my first sales directors told me that planning is the most important part of any sales call, and that's something that's always stuck with me. And I tell pretty much everyone that, you know, it was in my team or our leadership team as well. So yeah, planning, that's the most important part of any sales call, I'd say.
Very good. And what is the poor sales habit that niggles you the most?
Well, I think just sort of on the back of that one, salespeople are unprepared, right? So going into a sales call without a set of prepared questions and knowing what they want to get out of it, and then asking questions that they should really know the answer to already as well. You know, you should always prepare and already have a knowledge of background going into any sales call. So yeah, it's unprepared salespeople.
Excellent. Luke, thank you so much for that. I've really enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you for giving us the time, as I said earlier. And that's our podcast over.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Been a pleasure.
Thank you. Hello. If today's conversation has resonated with you in any way and it's provoked some thought or comments, then please do comment. We'd love you to subscribe as well to our YouTube channel so that you can get updates when we have more of these conversations with other sales leaders. And of course, if you would like to contact me directly, you can do at steve.bussey@salestrong.co.uk. Thank you. Look forward to hearing from you. Bye-bye.